Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating research paper that sits right at the intersection of artificial intelligence, social media, and information integrity. It's called How Far Will They Go? Red Teaming Online Influence with Large Language Models. And it's by a fantastic team of researchers led by Daniel C. Rees. You know, as AI agents become a bigger part of our everyday online discourse, figuring out how they might be used for political influence campaigns is just absolutely critical. So we're going to map out exactly how researchers are testing those very boundaries. So, how far will they go to influence online discourse? That is the million-dollar question the researchers set out to answer. We hear a ton about AI safety these days, but this study looks specifically at what happens when these models are actively pushed to generate political influence content. We aren't just talking about harmless chatbots answering trivia here. We're talking about highly capable AI agents operating in the wild, shaping conversations and potentially being steered by malicious actors. The researchers recognized this threat, and they decided to put it to the test through rigorous red teaming, which is essentially playing the role of the bad guy to expose a system's vulnerabilities. Okay, let's look at the roadmap for this explainer. We're covering the AI influence threat, how we measure the Overton window, a look at some surprising political asymmetries, and finally, jailbreaks and countermeasures. All right, part one, the AI influence threat. What's really fascinating here is how the researchers narrowed their focus. They didn't just test any random AI. They specifically contrasted those massive frontier API-only models, the ones hosted on big corporate servers, against the locally deployed open-source models. Why? Because open source perfectly fits the constraints of a privacy-conscious bad actor. Think about it. If you're trying to run a covert political influence campaign, you absolutely do not want to send all your generated propaganda through a corporate API that tracks everything you do and can shut you down in a second. No. You want a model you can download, run on your own hardware, and control entirely. That makes open source the primary vehicle for this specific kind of threat.
Moving right along to Section 2, Measuring the Overton window.
To actually measure this stuff, the researchers brought in a brilliant concept: LLM Overton windows. Now, in political science, the Overton window is basically the range of policies that the mainstream population finds acceptable at any given time. Here, they're applying it straight to AI. And LLM's Overton window is the exact range of political opinions the model can reliably express on controversial topics before its safety training kicks in and it just refuses to answer. Think of it like a literal invisible box. Whatever fits inside, the AI is perfectly happy to say, but if it falls outside that window, the AI shuts it down. Now, to figure out the size and shape of these windows, they didn't just test a couple of chatbots. No, they built a massive scale evaluation framework. To truly get the lay of the land in open source AI, you need serious academic rigor. Let's look at the sheer scale of what they pulled off here.
We're talking over 30 different large language models tested. They cast an incredibly wide net,
spanning 10 totally distinct model families. So this wasn't just a quirk of one specific architecture, and originating from 5 different countries. That global perspective is huge because different regions apply completely different cultural and regulatory standards to their AI. They really covered their bases to make this universally applicable. Which brings us to Section 3, Surprising Political Asymmetries. Let's look at the raw empirical data. The researchers actually found 3 systematic asymmetries in how these models express themselves politically. First, a tendency toward left-leaning expressivity. Second, an inverse correlation between model size and the contraction of its Overton window. And third, substantial regional differences based on where the model was built. And just to be super clear here, these are strictly objective, measurable data points pulled right from the machines. We're just looking at what the data tells us. In fact, there's a direct quote from the study that hits the nail on the head. It says, "Open source LLMs are typically more willing to generate left-leaning social media content. When prompted on controversial topics, as a baseline, the model showed a statistical asymmetry in what they deemed acceptable to output versus what they refused." It's a really eye-opening look into how underlying training data and alignment actually manifest in the real world. Then there's this second finding, which I find wild: model size contraction. The data shows that as these open source models get bigger and more complex, their Overton window, the range of political opinions they'll express, actually shrinks. Counterintuitive, right? You'd think a smarter model would express more diverse views. But larger models go through way heavier safety training, which basically tightens their guardrails and forces that window of acceptable discourse to be much smaller. Okay, final section, number 4, jailbreaks and countermeasures. So what happens when a bad actor decides to literally force that window open? The researchers didn't just sit back and measure baselines, they actively attacked the models. They proved you can dramatically expand the AI's range using simple, natural language jailbreaks. A jailbreak is essentially a cleverly crafted text prompt that tricks the AI into ignoring its own safety rules. It's like picking a lock, but with words. You don't need complex code, you just need the right phrasing. Here's exactly how they did it. Step 1. Find that baseline Overton window. What will it say normally? Step 2. Apply those natural language jailbreaks to the prompt. And step 3. Measure just how much that political expressivity expanded. By doing this at scale, they quantified exactly how much a jailbreak forces a model to say things it would normally shut down. The results? Honestly, pretty striking. They found that a trick that completely breaks one AI family might do absolutely nothing to another. But the big takeaway here, the whole reason this paper matters so much, is that it gives us a real practical framework to audit the political steerability of open source models. By figuring out exactly how these systems are manipulated, we are taking the first real steps toward building much stronger defenses against AI-enabled influence campaigns. Which leaves us with one massive question to ponder. How do we protect information integrity as highly steerable AI models become universally accessible? The research here makes it crystal clear. The tools to automate political influence are out there right now. They're measurable, and yeah, they are vulnerable to manipulation. Keeping our online discourse safe as these models spread is going to require exactly this kind of rigorous empirical science. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And remember, always keep questioning what you read online.